Case of Distrust is a detective noir visual novel game developed by Ben Wander and published by Serenity Forge. Set in San Francisco in 1924, it places you in the gumshoes of Phyllis Malone, a former police officer turned private detective. She's down on her luck and seems to get the easiest job around when she's hired by a known bootlegger to track down who's been sending him death threats. When the threats turn out to be fake, but he shows up dead anyway, she resolves to figure out who killed him and is tossed into a murky world of gangsters, speakeasies, backroom pool halls and crooked cops who couldn't give a shit. The game is pure noir who, what, where, why and when detective story. I've said before that noir is cliché done right. It's how you layer the stories and characters and provide the spin that prevents the cliché from becoming hacky and actually being engaging. Blacksad did it so wrong. A Case of Distrust does it so right. You'll travel from location to location in your investigation, questioning suspects and looking for clues into surrounding scenes. Rendered in 2D silhouettes, each scene has a surprising amount of life and vibrancy. Each brief animated scene is superbly rotoscoped, giving it a solid, almost alive feel. The scene and item descriptions are both detailed and succinct. This isn't a game that's going to throw two walls of text at you to describe a door. Yet it's a visual novel, so text aplenty there is, and it's all brilliant. Have the best story in the world by all means, but you live and die by your characters in these games. I mentioned the spin before, and it's here that, unlike all your previous detective novels, the lead here is a woman. And not just that, but one of the first female police officers too. Determined to do right by the victim and bitter with how she was treated and pretty much run off the force despite her dad also being a detective, Phyllis is far more nuanced, human and real than most other female protagonists in almost any other game. She's at times vulnerable but tough, embittered but hopeful, tragic yet noble. She is, in the most senses, alive. The same goes for most of the other cast. Yes, they're your standard fare of gangsters, malls, jazz cats, bent cops and psychos, but they're all real. They each have a personality and are fleshed out far beyond their 2D model representation. It's mainly here that the dialogue comes front and centre. Each character talks realistically and responds differently to how you reply. Some like being joked with, others appreciate candour, even to a brutal level. How you talk to them drastically affects how much information you'll get out of each, so you'll need to measure up each character quickly in order to extract the most amount of information. This is also central to the main detective work. Most of your progression will be from collecting statements from each suspect and using them against each other to highlight inconsistencies in each story. These lies can then be leveraged to squeeze yet more information out of them, and so on. And how you apply pressure on each suspect can have drastic effects on how they'll respond to you in the future. This isn't a game where you simply run through the gamut of the dialogue tree by rote. You have to think about what you're saying and to whom. Take a jazz musician you're questioning for example. It becomes apparent that his alibi includes him doing something that could potentially get him in a good bit of trouble with his employer. The trouble is, his employer is a notorious gang boss and will probably have him kneecapped or worse if he found out. So how do you deal with this info? Try to hint that you'll talk if you can't get any further statements? Empathise with him and swear you'll say nothing? Or outright blackmail him? Each character reacts differently and will react to a different statement depending on which course you pick. Learning how to compromise each character's statement with a contradiction is key to getting the most information. As you travel, you'll have the option to chat to the cab driver on each journey. These are usually random conversations about the game setting and provide a nice bit of colour commentary on the game world and the events around and outside the confines of the story. It's a very nice touch, and in stark contrast to the real world, nearly all of the cab conversations are quite short and interesting. The dialogue in this game is pretty much flawless. Each option is well detailed and makes sense in context, and each character will speak like an actual human. The note-taking system is very good outside of the general section, which can be quite confusing to read as it just jots down every major revelation without any real spacing, but that's not much of an issue as the rest of the notebook is far more useful and easier to read. The game is not without its flaws, however. The small number of locations and the at times very specific nature of how the questioning is advanced can lead players to going around in circles for a bit. The story also runs well out of steam at the end, and the final twist is laughable. It completely takes all the meaning behind everything you've been doing up until then and tosses it away. Rushed isn't the word, which is an odd criticism of a game that's a scant 3 hours long at best. I know visual novel games aren't renowned for their length, and indeed they aren't meant to stretch on for huge lengths of time, but this could have been given an extra hour or two to ensure the ending actually made some sense. It doesn't ruin the game, but it does mar what at the time was a gripping and engrossing experience. Special mention must go to the music. It's fantastic. Stunning light jazz and pure 20s background music help make the game settle into your mind as a real place. It's never distracting whilst also being noticeable for just how good it is. I really love the music in this game. A Case of Distrust is short, sharp and a really solid detective story told with conviction and some real flair. It features great characters, great dialogue options and concepts, a really good script and even better music. It is let down by the game ending very abruptly, being quite short and having some issues with how specific the contradiction options needed to be. If you're into detective stories and or visual novels with a unique art style, then this is a must-have for you.